Welcome to Breaking News to Trading Moves. I want you to imagine a student who spent years preparing for the most rigorous entrance exam imaginable, only to fail.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's tough.
Right. And the family just writes off their chances, their friends move on, the whole dream of getting into that top-tier institution is dead.
Right, it's over.
But then, completely out of the blue, a letter arrives in the mail from the admissions office stating, we reviewed your file and we are going to let you retake the test.
That's a great way to put it because that exact dynamic is playing out in the biotech market right now.
It really is. So Replimune plans to resubmit its application for RP1, which is its experimental melanoma drug, following an agreement with the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Yeah, and the market reaction to this specific headline was immediate, and it was sharp. Replimune's stock jumped following the update.
Just off that one piece of news.
Exactly. We are seeing a real-time reevaluation by traders regarding how they view this business. I mean, they went from being perceived as a biotech operation facing a regulatory dead end to one that may actually have a viable path toward commercial approval.
Well, our mission today is clear. We are looking squarely at this headline to break down the specific winners and losers in the market resulting from this FDA update. We are tracking exactly where the capital is moving.
Let's follow the money.
Yeah, let's start with the primary beneficiaries to see exactly where the initial market optimism is landing. The direct oncology catalyst winners are Replimune itself, trading under the ticker REPL, and Bristol Myers Squibb, ticker BMY.
Naturally, Replimune is the most direct winner in this scenario because, well, RP1 is their flagship asset.
And
it's a core driver of their entire corporate valuation.
it's everything for them.
Right, it's the whole ballgame. When the FDA offers a resubmission path, it hands investors a fresh regulatory milestone to focus on. The sharp upward move in REPL shows traders actively recalculating the probability of this specific drug making it to market.
Okay, let's examine this, because I want to look at the mechanics of that repricing. If a drug isn't approved yet, how does a mere agreement to resubmit an application cause such a sharp jump in value?
That's the million-dollar question.
I mean, they still do not have a product they can sell, so why the sudden rush of capital?
It comes down to how pre-revenue biotech companies are valued on Wall Street. These valuations rely heavily on regulatory catalysts rather than current earnings.
Because there are no earnings yet.
Exactly. Most early or mid-stage biotech companies do not generate a profit. They have massive research expenses, clinical trial costs, and, a constant burn rate of cash just going out the door.
Yeah, they're just spending money.
Right. So institutional traders build valuation models based on the probability of future success. A regulatory event, like an FDA meeting, a phase 3 data readout, or in this case, an agreement to resubmit an application, it acts as a primary input for that model.
So it's really all about probability weighting.
The math is ruthless. If an asset is rejected, the probability of future cash flow drops to near zero. The model dictates the stock price must plummet.
Right, which we saw originally.
But a renewed path to approval suddenly puts the asset back into the viable column. Traders might update that probability from 0 to, say, 40%, forcing them to reprice the stock based on this newly restored potential.
The science didn't even change.
No, the underlying science of the molecule stayed exactly the same, but the regulatory roadblock was lifted just enough to let capital flow back into the equation.
Okay, that explains REPL. But what about Bristol Myers Squibb, ticker BMY? That is a massive established pharmaceutical company. How does an early-stage company's retake on a test benefit a giant like BMY?
Well, the clinical strategy for RP1 involves using it in combination with other drugs. Specifically, Replimune has been testing RP1 in combination with Bristol Myers Squibb's blockbuster immunotherapy, Opdivo.
Ah,
Yeah, so if RP1 eventually gains approval, it doesn't enter the market as a standalone cure. It enters as a combination treatment.
meaning doctors would prescribe both.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Every time a patient receives RP1, they are also receiving Opdivo.
That's a huge, or rather a massive win for them.
It is. For Bristol Myers Squibb, a win for Replimune translates directly into sustained or expanded utility for their own product. It's a symbiotic relationship where the rising tide of the smaller biotech lifts the revenue projections for the larger partner.
Here's where it gets really compelling. Because Replimune's news relates to a notoriously difficult-to-treat skin cancer, the optimism naturally extends to other companies dealing with similar regulatory and medical hurdles.
It spreads out.
Right, the sector winners here include broader melanoma and cancer immunotherapy names, plus small-cap biotech and FDA catalyst stocks.
We see the sentiment improvement spreading to companies like Moderna, ticker mRNA, and Iovance Biotherapeutics, ticker IOVA.
Okay, why them specifically?
Well, this FDA development improves the outlook for organizations working on complex oncology targets. Melanoma has historically been a graveyard for experimental drugs.
It's notoriously tough.
It's extremely. So when a market sees the FDA willing to work collaboratively with a company on an experimental melanoma drug, it boosts confidence that other novel approaches might also find a receptive regulatory audience.
But Iovance and Moderna are taking wildly different approaches to cancer than Replimune, though.
They are, and that highlights how broad the market's interpretation of this news actually is. I mean, Moderna is pushing forward with personalized cancer vaccines.
Right.
And Iovance focuses on cell therapy, specifically utilizing tumor-infiltrating lymphocytes to attack cancer. These are cutting-edge, highly complex mechanisms of action.
So they're just feeding off the good vibes from the FDA.
Basically, traders look at the FDA's willingness to engage on RP1 and assume the agency is adopting a more permissive, or at least a more communicative, stance toward novel oncology treatments as a whole.
So it creates a sort of halo of optimism for companies tackling the hardest problems in cancer research.
Exactly.
But we also see this extending to companies completely outside of the melanoma or even the oncology space entirely.
We do.
The list of winners includes names like Sarepta Therapeutics, ticker SRPT, and Viking Therapeutics, ticker VKTX. Now, Sarepta works on genetic muscle diseases. Viking is heavily focused on obesity and metabolic disorders. Why does an FDA decision about a skin cancer drug lift the risk appetite for SRPT and VKTX?
It's because traders perceive the FDA as a singular, monolithic gatekeeper determining the fate of the entire industry.
They hold all the keys.
Right. When the FDA appears willing to reopen a pass for a previously sidelined therapy like RP1, it elevates the risk appetite across the broader small and mid-cap biotech sector.
ISA.
Companies like SRPT and VKTX, much like Replimune, trade less on current commercial sales and more on the anticipation of future approvals. They rely on trial data and regulatory outcomes.
So they are tethered to the mood of the gatekeeper.
That's a perfect way to phrase it. Traders apply a sort of regulatory risk premium to every biotech stock. If the agency is showing flexibility or a willingness to engage in dialogue rather than issuing flat rejections, that risk premium drops.
Makes sense.
Investors feel more comfortable holding volatile biotech stocks if they believe the agency regulating them is acting reasonably. The specific disease state matters a lot less than the overall posture of the regulatory body.
Well, with capital flowing toward these specific catalyst names, we must evaluate what assets and strategies are put under pressure by this updated regulatory outlook.
Every trade has another side to it.
Exactly. This brings us to the complex losers: competing melanoma treatment franchises and bearish FDA risk trades.
Right, and the companies facing pressure here include Merck, ticker MRK, and Bristol Myers Squibb, ticker BMY.
Okay, wait, we just discussed Bristol Myers Squibb as a primary winner because of the Opdivo combination. So what does this all mean for a company like BMY? Can a company effectively compete against itself?
It's a really complex dynamic. The pharmaceutical industry is built on defending standard of care treatments. Currently, drugs like Bristol Myers Squibb's Opdivo and Merck's Keytruda dominate the melanoma market.
They are the default options.
They are. They generate billions in revenue as primary therapies.
So they basically own the market right now.
They do. Now, on one hand, BMY benefits if RP1 is used in combination with Opdivo, as we discussed. However, broader melanoma competition can severely pressure existing treatment franchises.
Because it shakes things up.
Right. If Replimune's combination therapy eventually proves to be vastly superior, it threatens the established revenue streams if new combinations take market share over time.
Because suddenly they have to share the pie.
It creates a complex modeling scenario for investors. If a patient is prescribed Opdivo alone, BMY captures all the economic value. If a new standard of care emerges requiring a combination with a drug from another company, well, the pricing power and market share dynamics start to change.
And what about Merck?
For Merck, trading under MRK, the pressure is even more direct. Any new viable treatment in the melanoma space threatens their established market dominance with Keytruda. The moat around their cash cow is suddenly facing a new potential breach.
Wow, it really is a constant race to stay ahead, even if it means disrupting your own product line. We also have another category of losers here, and these aren't individual companies trying to protect market share.
No, these are the bears.
Right, we are looking at biotech short sellers and bearish FDA risk trades. The primary vehicles for this are USA-listed exchange-traded funds like the SPDR S&P Biotech ETF, ticker XBI, and the iShares Biotechnology ETF, ticker IBB.
Traders frequently use these ETFs to express a broad view on biotech risk appetite. If an institutional investor believes the FDA is going to be exceptionally strict or that capital is drying up for early-stage research, they take a bearish position by shorting these broad sector ETFs.
And shorting means they are borrowing shares to sell them, hoping to buy them back later at a lower price.
Exactly. They are betting on failure across the board.
And for a long time, that has been a highly profitable trade, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The biotech sector has faced severe headwinds with high interest rates and strict regulatory oversight. However, when Replimune's news hits the wire and encourages investors to chase beaten-down FDA catalyst names, capital flows rapidly back into the sector.
Which forces the bears to scramble.
The mechanics of short selling dictate that if the price of the asset you are shorting goes up, your potential losses are technically infinite. This sudden influx of buying pressure from the Replimune news forces those bearish positions to come under severe stress.
They have to get out.
Yeah, short sellers have to buy back shares of XBI and IBB to cover their bets and stop their losses.
The classic short squeeze.
The irony is that the act of buying back shares to cover a bearish bet actually creates more buying pressure, driving the prices of these ETFs even higher. The initial spark was a single headline about one melanoma drug, but the mechanical reality of short covering forces the entire sector index upward.
Finally, we are looking at the specific type of biotech operations that lose out when market capital consolidates around names with clear regulatory pathways, the ones that get left behind.
Yes, the left behind. Specifically, cash-burning biotech names without clear FDA paths. The primary examples here are Bluebird Bio, ticker BLUE, and Fate Therapeutics, ticker FATE.
To understand why these companies suffer on a day when the broader biotech sector might be rallying, we have to look at the mechanics of capital rotation. Institutional investors have a finite amount of capital to deploy. A portfolio manager only has so many dollars to put to work.
So if they want to buy the Replimune news, they have to sell something else to fund the purchase.
That is the core of capital rotation. When a company like REPL gets a renewed FDA pathway, it becomes a much more attractive target for investment. Capital naturally rotates away from riskier, undefined assets and moves toward biotech names with clearer near-term catalysts.
It sounds like a game of musical chairs where the music is regulatory momentum. If you don't have a near-term data readout or a strong balance sheet when capital rotates, you're left without a seat.
That's a great analogy. The music really is the clinical catalyst calendar. If you look at the balance sheets of companies like BLUE or Fate, they are often characterized by high cash burn rates. They are spending millions of dollars every quarter on research, salaries, and lab space.
Without any incoming revenue?
Without revenue. Therefore, they are racing against a ticking clock called their cash runway. If they do not have an obvious regulatory event on the horizon, a data readout, an FDA meeting, or a trial initiation within that cash runway, they become dead weight in a portfolio.
So the investors just bail.
Investors will pull their money out of those stagnant names to chase the active, moving targets like Replimune. This rotation leaves weaker, cash-burning names behind, especially those without strong balance sheets.
The opportunity cost of holding a company that won't have news for 2 years is just too high when another company is making headlines today.
The market demands milestones. You can have brilliant scientists, a state-of-the-art laboratory, and promising early-stage molecules. But if you cannot point to a specific date on the calendar where the FDA will make a ruling or a clinical trial will release definitive data, the market will starve you of capital.
They want that immediate clarity.
Exactly. The funds rotate into companies that can offer immediate, actionable clarity.
It is a brutal environment. You are not just competing on the underlying biology of your drug. You are competing for the limited attention span of capital markets.
The ultimate dividing line in the sector becomes the haves and the have-nots of regulatory clarity. The companies left behind essentially serve as the liquidity providers for the companies experiencing a rally.
Well, as we wrap up our look at these market moves, I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. If the FDA is displaying a willingness to engage and reopen regulatory pathways for therapies that previously faced setbacks, how might this evolving regulatory posture alter the way venture capital firms evaluate and fund the next generation of risky, early-stage biotech startups?
That's an excellent question to consider.
Right. I mean, if the perceived finality of a rejection is softening, the entire risk calculus for early stage investment might need to be rewritten.
It could change everything for early funding.
Definitely. A quick reminder before we go. The preceding discussion is not financial advice, nor does it contain buy or sell recommendations. The content discussed today is purely the opinion of the author of the original article. Thank you for joining us on Breaking News to Trading Moves. Keep studying those charts, and we will see you next time.